and hopefully the Tree of Life will help you do that. This is an ancient map used in many cultures, including in the ancient Kemetic culture. The Tree of Life is if you get any cell that duplicates itself, so it's 1 and then it duplicates into 2, and you can see this very easily on the internet. You Google this. So, okay, without these fingers, but it goes 2, and then it goes 3, and then it's like, okay? And then you got this thing that suddenly looks like many, many bubbles all intertwined together. And so you have the seed of life, you have the flower of life, you have the fruit of life, okay? Depending on how, like, the circular structure and how it forms. But then if you look down the middle, and you go down one line down the middle, you'll find the Tree of Life. So it's a geometry that's found in the building block structure of nature, in the cellular building block structure of nature. And in ancient Egypt, one of the very old temples of Abydos, which is Aptu, which is the place of Ausar, there's also a very mysterious flower of life there in the Assyrian, down, you can kind of see it. Now you need private access to see it up close. But you can see this, it's like, how did they put that in the rock? It's not chiseled in, it's not carved in, it's just there in the rock. So it's like, is it laser? What is it? What kind of technology were they using? But they were obviously working. Also, they had a deep understanding of the flower of life and the building block geometries of nature. Let's start with that. That's the bottom. Okay, so I learned this from it's like an African Kemetic school. Been a mentor. We've traveled Egypt like 8 years deciphering the Tree of Life with a group of people. And then we were working in a certain way, which was from the top to the bottom. But then I also realized I got this transmission how to do this Tree of Life after 1 month of doing Kemetic yoga with my friend and also my teacher. And I went to the temple of Abydos and I started walking through all the chambers, and it just all morphed into a certain way that I'm going to share with you now. I've tested this model for 8 years on many groups, shamanically, in class, and I'm like, okay, it works. So I'm confident now to offer this as a part of the foundation of the school, okay? And it might be built on, but this has been practiced now, and we've been deciphering it for a very long time with a group of very, devoted beings. So, okay. So let's start with the bottom part. So right at the bottom of the tree, let's call it, also put the roots here, which I've not done before. It's lovely, actually, yes. So these are the roots of Geb. The Tree of Life starts with the roots, right? So right at the bottom, we're working with Geb, at the root, at the base. Why? Because Geb is the father. And in ancient Kemet, Geb is the earth, Geb is the father. Geb is what roots us and stabilizes us onto the ground. It's a grounding force. Now, if we're going to work with this in a way, as a way for transformation, we need to see that some of our root complexes or our root understanding of life, it comes as a child, what we've learned from our father. Everything that has to do with our body, that has to do with safety, that has to do with finances, that has to do with like home, everything that connects us down and anchors us. It's also nourishment. It's also food. It's nature. So our connection to earth, to body, to nature, to nourishment, everything. So if we want to look at this if we're looking at your relationship to yourself and to your body and to safety and to finances, find a connection in what you've learned around that and maybe what you've received from father. What does father mean to you? What's your relationship to father? Some people have very wobbly relationships to their father. They don't trust their father. They never felt safe with their father. So their root is always wobbling in the way that they don't feel safe in life. They cannot trust. They have an issue with their body. They have problems with their finances. They get sick a lot. They don't know how to stabilize themselves. And also, it's just not only our relationship with our father, but it's also with father as a principle, okay, as a grounding, nourishing force. Fathers these days, because there's this narrative, mothers nurture, fathers are absent, and fathers just go away and do their thing, and they don't touch and they don't hold. And so there's a more, I'd say, maybe more in recent times, or there's like a Western complex also that, as a man or as a father, you don't hold your child, you don't nurture it, you don't show it affection, like that's a mother's job, right? it might not be true for you in your case with your father, but the tendency is the father is more absent and the mother is more present. And so, but if you look at some really tribal ways of living, the father is very much a part of the child's life and the growing and the holding and safety and the nourishment, and dads cook also, you know, puts you to bed and all of that. But so it's about rewiring our root to understand and to embrace the principle of a healthy father in our life. And if we cannot change our own dads, so we can't go and say, Dad, I need you to stabilize my root for me. So that's why we plug into the Divine Father Geb, we plug into Earth, and we say, okay, let me do my initiations in nature. Let me go out into a forest. Let me go be with the waterfall. Let me take a week out in nature and rewire my connection to nature. Any fears I have around nature, any allergies I have towards nature, like start to rewire that slowly, slowly, so that we have a very stable tree of life to work with. Without the Geb, everything else is wobbles. It needs stability from the Father. It needs a root. Okay? So this is Geb. And then we have Auset. And Auset is, as you know, Isis, and she's our memories, okay? She represents the part of our memories. She's our ancestral line. It's the bloodline. She also holds the house of the trance and transformation that comes through trance. It's also the connection to the dark mother, you could say, or to the mother connection, mother line, okay? So Geb is more of our skeleton, muscular system. Auset now works more with our sexual area, like our sexual organs, okay? So if we start having issues with our womb or our yoni, with sexuality, it's often also connected to a memory, to a bloodline. When we start doing our deeper work with Auset and we rise from the tree of life and our energy rises, we start seeing, this is like kind of, we start going into maybe shamanic breath work. We start doing plant medicine. We start moving into trance-like states in order to transform stuff on a deep lineage level. Okay, so she's the lineage work we start doing. It's the healing arts. She's a healer. Healing. We start saying, I need to heal myself. And when you start healing yourself, you'll know that, oh, it's never just about you. It's about also what you've received from your parents and what they received from their parents. And then suddenly it's like, oh my God, there's a lineage. Working with her is working also with our past. Call it past lives. But we start to realize we cannot avoid or run from our past. So when we work with her, we can't run or avoid our past. And we know that we need to integrate, thank you, our past in order to move into our future. So here we can also experience sometimes also a dark night of the soul, where we suddenly also go into the soul realms. We realize that there's death and there's life, and her work isn't easy. That's where I said there's a lot of snot and a lot of tears and a lot of puking, and it's like she releases, okay? But she releases so that we're more connected to ourselves. Obviously there's a connection to the body. So here we heal, here we connect, we reconnect, and we start to do the soul work. So it's the soul work. And we remember more of who we are. Oh, and obviously here is the emotional work. Now, what's so important with Auset is that the rest of the tree of life cannot open because she has the key. And the key is called devotion. Okay? You cannot open the rest of the tree of life without her. Because the journey goes to Het-Heru, and really the whole journey wants to go up to remember yourself, to refigure yourself as an Ausar, meaning you've woken up your body, your sleeping body, into an awakened state. And that happens when you reawake your inner Ausar, which is your spinal column activates, you wake up and you realize who you are. And the whole journey is a journey of devotion. So we can understand this map, but unless we have devotion, energetically, it means nothing. It means you've learned something and it's intellectual and it's clever, but it doesn't do anything to change your life. Her devotion changes everything. It gives life to the rest of the tree. It's the only way to wake up the tree, devotion. But you need a root and you need stability. In the Sufi traditions, they say, don't even bother with your real work until you reach 40. Like until you're 40, they're like, yeah, whatever, go learn your lesson. You're 40, great, now let's begin, because you've learned something in the world about safety and stability and what it means to hold yourself and anchor yourself. So before that, it's all sweet. Yes. You know? Yes. After that, it's like, now we talk, you know. This is in the Sufi tradition, okay? Not in this tradition. But there is something around the importance of grounding. Grounding, especially these days in the spiritual work, it's like one experience after another. And I can also talk for myself. And there's no ability to ground, to root it, to take time out, to digest it, to take care of the small little things in life, because there's just so much stimulation. We can't unlock the tree in that type of stimulation. We need groundedness, and then we need devotion. And Auset, she's mysterious, you know, her timeliness also, the way we work with time. We need patience. We need patience. Says the Aries, you know. Learned the hard way. Okay. Now when the energy goes like this, it goes into two areas, okay? We have Het-Heru and we have Sobek. Het-Heru now is our imaginal. So we have memories, right? That's the past. Now the imaginal is everything that is the potential of what we can create. When we have grounding and we've cleared as memories, we have devotion, we move into the imaginal. And the imaginal of Het-Heru is art. It's the senses. Everything that's created starts from an idea, right? Even Einstein said imagination is everything. It all starts in the imagination. So everything you're creating starts in the imagination. That's the world of Het-Heru. It's also joy. It's sensuality. It's sexuality. It's play. Okay, so it's the imaginal, it's the senses. It's like, okay, wow, I feel rooted and there's this devotion. Now here, paint your canvas, you know. It's the delight of life. It's the delight in the senses of life. But you see, with her, there's a counterpart. It has to be balanced. And what it needs to be balanced with in this case is with Sobek, which is our reptilian brain, so to say. But it also represents our logic, our intellect. It represents our rationality. It's instinct. So let's look for a moment. Instinct, like a true instinct, like a knowing, intuition. But it comes from the reptilian, like we spoke the other time about the reptilian brain. It has a very pure instinct. Like it knows when it's time to eat because it feels hungry. It knows when it needs to use the bathroom. It's just like, you know, it doesn't think about it. It's an instinctual knowing. So with Het-Heru and Sobek, they actually need to. This is where a lot of work can be done, because a Het-Heru dominant person will be like, oh my God, the senses. I'm gonna go travel and I'm gonna go do this and this and this and this, and there's no care for actually. Does that make sense on your timeline? Can you afford it? You know, like, do you have energy for this? Like, you know, it's just like senses, more, loved it. Who cares? Let's think about that tomorrow if it makes sense or not. Who cares if it makes sense, if it's logical, if it's rational? Doesn't matter. Het-Heru wants to live for the moment. And there's so much joy and sensuality in that expression. It's someone who's like, let me eat the whole chocolate cake, but then tomorrow feel sick. But it's like, but it was so good, for example. Or enjoying things in the moment without thinking about consequences. Okay, but in her beauty, it's just in her, you could say in her balanced state, it's doing everything with sense, everything with a sense of joy of its creation, of its creativity. There's a lot of creativity with Het-Heru. And wonder. But with Sobek, on the other hand, if there's Sobek dominance in the system, Sobek then only cares about does it work or not, functionality, and also he'll think about ensuring it. What's that word? Making sure, like check all the consequences of an action. weigh it out, the consequences. So people with a lot of Sobek will probably take out 5 or 6 insurances in their life for everything. I have to insure everything because there are consequences and I want to be ready for them. Het-Heru probably won't even know what that, like, whatever. So we need a balance of these two. Okay, this is very important for our own power. It means we create, but we have a rational sense of, we have, again, like we spoke the other day of Patah and Sehmet, there's this form of structure to create stability in our mind. And this is to create stability. This whole structure is to create a stability within us. Like in the world, they say, oh, the world is ruled by reptiles. Well, I think it's just the world is ruled by Sobek minds. You know, it's like the sense of reptilian energy, which is a very Sobek energy. And so, yeah, if they're really big lizards that go in a room and take off their flesh body and just turn into reptiles, I don't think so personally. I mean, but I do think that there is something about the Sobek energy which has a lot of power, and this energy dominates the world for sure. Currently, it dominates. Everything has to be so structured. There's 50 pages of the little words behind the terms and conditions. Right. The consequences of stepping out of the box can be harsh. Yes, that's beautiful because Sobek is reptile, it's cold blood. Het-Heru is a cow and it's warm-blooded. I don't mean like she's a cow, like, you know. It's so funny because in Egypt you call someone a cow. It's terrible. But yes, definitely cold-blooded. There's a big difference between a cold-blooded and a warm-blooded. For sure, a reptile doesn't even care for its young. It leaves them. And the warm-blooded has a maternal, nurturing nature. So in a way, if we want to balance the tree, in some way we have to be good, know how to take care of ourselves individually, in isolation even, if we were to say be alone, but then also how to be within a group and be within community. Yes. Beautiful. Now, when this energy then comes all up to Heru, this is where we start to realize, and this is like kind of like the area just about like our solar plexus heart, upper solar plexus, lower heart area. This is the willpower. And this is where we realize we need to rise from something. So when I studied the Tree of Life, the way I learned is like, yeah, most of the population stay here. Most of us are, a lot of the population is struggling with this versus mommy daddy stuff versus a lot of things coming up from the past that never get resolved. So they start to weave and spin. Remember, Auset is a weaver. So whatever happened in your past shapes your way of responding to the future. Every moment is just a response. Why are we responding in that way? It comes from the weaving of our past. It determines how we do things in the future, how we do things. So we sometimes need to go to the source. So a lot of this population, you could say, this is the way I learned it, a lot of the population don't know about rising out of this. Because here is emotion, here the wheel spins in drama, okay? If you guys stay stuck here, you're working always just with the body and the mind. There's not much spirit and soul here because it doesn't know it has a spirit and a soul. So this is where drama happens. This is where there's a constant spiral of the same things happening again and again in life. So we want to rise from that. And the power we need to rise is through Heru. Horus is the power to rise in the tree. So we're not just in the roots, but it's that part that's like, oh, I want to see the light, I want to be in life. I want to be a contribution to life. I want to play in life. I want to meet people. I want to be happy. This is a rising that's required. And it's like, enough of this. I don't want to say trauma, but the story that spins here. Okay? And Sobek, can be very loud if unintegrated. It means it's a very loud, chattering mind in its shadow. So Het-Heru is indulgence in her shadow. Sobek is a very noisy mind in its shadow. And so if we can silence the mind and also not be too indulgent and actually have a good balance, then we get a lot of power from that. Addictions are one way, of course, to stay down here. And not resolving things from our past will keep us down here. If we are avoiding our history, we won't be able to rise. So this is willpower and this is Horus. When we decide, okay, enough is enough, like kind of what you did yesterday, with your commitments, you stepped into your Heru. You stepped into the part of you that said, I'm not going to just be driven here by my Sahu body, or like this is one of our 9 bodies, or by my shadow. No, I actually want to be driven by my soul. So this is where we introduce the bath. We won't have time to do all the 9 bodies, and it is such a big body of work, so we will just do the Tree of Life. But this is where we introduce the soul that wants wings to fly. The soul wants to, by nature, reach its body that is in the stars, because one of our 9 bodies always is in the stars. And part of the Tree of Life is to rise all the way to your stellar self, the part of you that lives, one of your bodies that lives in the stars. And that was what a lot of the technology and alchemy they used, was in order to get to that point so they could render their bodies like a holographic thing. It's like render it so that you remember your body in the stars and to embody your stellar all the way down to your flesh. Bring that all the way into. So it was like really very deep cellular awakening work. But it starts, the actual energy really starts to rise through Heru. Through Horus, okay? So you started to do that yesterday. It's driven, it's action. It's not saying, oh, I want to change. No, it's like, what do I need to do every day, 10, 20, 30 minutes of an hour of, in order to really make the change? You have to take action. So Heru is action. This is where you realize you're not just your body and your mind and your identity and your conditioning. You're so much more. And so now we start to realize that. Then we get to Maat. Maat is a feminine force of nature, a principle that isn't governed by emotions. Sekhmet is governed by her emotions. Het-Heru is governed by her emotions. Auset is governed by her emotions. She's not governed by emotions. She's, you could say, she's like the calm underneath all that. And she's still feminine. Okay, she's a feminine principle. And she is justice. Yeah, she is the scale. So when we reach Ma'at, we start to realize, oh, we start to see things as they are, yeah? Not as we thought they were or as we want them to be. So we start to see clearly because we're not governed by the emotions that are coming to us from our past. We've done the work with Auset. We've cleared more of that. And then we realize, oh my God, I'm seeing the world this way, but it's not actually anything to do with who I am. It's something I received from my past. So that's cleared. And then there's willpower to rise and there's strength to rise. Suddenly it's like, oh, it's like removing a veil from the eyes. This is when we get to Ma'at. There's clarity of vision. We're not living in illusions. Here we see things the way we want to see them in our head, and we can be given a lot, but they're not real, they're illusionary things. And sometimes it's a very important process, but with Ma'at, it's more silent. How do we know we're receiving something that's a pure transmission that isn't, it's coming in stillness? And that's why while we're here, let's attune our antennas now. This whole notion of channeling and downloading, I don't want to wrong that. But I also want to, because I'm in Egypt, so many people come and channel information. It's like, what is that source actually? Is that the gospel? Is that true? Or is it something that's coming also from your illusion, an unprocessed self? Not to wrong that, sometimes we do download information, we do channel, but how do we know? We feel it. We are so still and there's like a divine grace and spaciousness around it. And it comes in such stillness and our body has to feel it. And there's space for our body to receive it. And it's gentle and soft and graceful. When we receive Ma'at and Tehuti, yes, we can hear it from inside because some of us hear things. Some of us see things. But how do we know? It's grace. It's still. It doesn't jolt us and confuse us. If we're confused by it, it's not pure. If we respond to it in a way where we really feel it, it's pure. Okay, so that's just something else to take. Take it or leave it. It's up to you. Ma'at isn't confused, and Ma'at doesn't doubt her own mind. When we live in Ma'at, we're not confused with what we're seeing. We're not questioning it. We're not trying to figure it out. When it comes, it's so pristinely clear in our entire cellular structure that it becomes wisdom. So when you share it, it comes out of your lips like wisdom. People are responding and resonating because it's clear, okay? So let's just go here for a moment, even though it's not here. He's wisdom. This is Ma'at. Now, balancing Ma'at on the other side is Herukhuti. Herukhuti is the version of Heru that is in the midday sun. It's a warrior and it's powerful. And what does he do? He backs up the law of Ma'at. Meaning, if you're not living in Ma'at and you're starting to awaken, there's someone behind that's like, it's like in a way, he's protecting the true law. He's the warrior that protects the law. Ma'at is the law. Okay? The law of cause and effect. The law that if you do something, you're going to get it back. The law, that's one law. We have 7 laws. She is the guardian of the laws. And Herukhuti backs up the law. So when we start to awaken, that's when it might become more challenging. Like what you said, I'm going to show up for my bullshit. Because once we start to awaken, we're so much more susceptible to our own bullshit. And there's so many things, new things that come in that we need to work with. And the warrior, Herukhuti, backs up the pure law, the law of nature. So it will always bring things into balance now. He supports things to come into balance. So if someone is like, okay, I really need this protector of the law inside of me. I need someone to be my own warrior, to stand with me. That's a Herukhuti. Also yesterday, when you're like, I stand for, I rise. This is a Herukhuti energy. And he will always protect in a healthy way, not out of fear, but out of love, what is pure and innocent. And Ma'at is that purity and innocence. Okay? So when we start to awaken, we start to say, okay, now I have to be more discerning. Because if I'm not, life will kick me in the ass in a different way. Right? Things start to change. You start to awaken your inner vision and you start to get... Now, yes, if you're not discerning, you'll get overwhelmed. You'll drive yourself crazy. Something will come in and remind you and remind you and remind you. That's Herukhuti. To protect the purity and innocence of your awakening. It's all out of love. And this is just what I've learned in the last, it maybe in 5 years you'll come, it will be, there's going to be different pieces to it, okay? So I'm just offering you now what I have. I'm not saying this is it's an evolving thing that a few of us are really working on, but this is what we have, and this feels, so far it resonates. So then Ma'at sees things as they are, the law, purity, balance, innocence. Herukhuti supports that principle. And then the energy, now this is an interesting new one, which was Nefertum, which is the blue lotus, okay? Which is the beauty way. In ancient Egypt, blue lotus, the beauty way. Blue lotus, the beauty way. Blue lotus, purity. Blue lotus, innocence. It's that simple. Blue lotus, pure simplicity of life. When you live in the world, when you walk the path of the blue lotus, you're welcoming a path of utter simplicity into your life. There's no complication. It's simple. It's the beauty way. It opens. Right? So if you're saying, okay, I want to start a blue lotus journey, it's a journey to a return of simplicity. You're returning to a way of simplicity, which means you're returning to a way of beauty. Simplify your mind, simplify your life. The beauty way opens. You work with Ma'at, you worked with Herukhuti, you've got this, you're working on this, or not working on it, but this is, more and more stability in life, more and more anchoring in life. The path leads to the blue lotus, to the beauty way. When you live in the beauty way, you live with wisdom. Something happens, an experience, you don't like it, you've learned from it, it becomes wisdom. So there's no more, I didn't like that, why did you do that, this is terrible, da-da-da-da. No, wait, this happened, what did I learn from it? Wisdom, okay? Tehuti is a scribe. He's writing, in a way, he's like writing the hall of records in ourselves. Like every moment is an experience. We can choose to digest and learn from every experience and write our own hall of records of wisdom. And how do we know that we're living in wisdom? Is that our words, our thoughts, our actions start to align. Yeah. And every terrible or bad thing in life becomes such a well of knowledge for ourselves. So wisdom, he's also knowledge, alchemy, is the scribe. We start to embody this wisdom. And supporting that, this is interesting because this has been shifting for us for a while. Originally it's Patah, okay? Patah is who I said was like the divine architect of word. He's also the craftsman. So when you have wisdom, you create your craft. But this is actually the sphere really of power. So when we start to work with that, we work with power. This whole tree is actually a path of power. And it's a way to embody our true power. So when we work with wisdom, what supports that is our true power. It's Sekhmet, it's Patah, it's that passion with the structure, which is our power. So we balance that with our wisdom. And so here we're really embodying this and we're walking that in the world. So what does that mean? We're actually making a difference by starting to walk in the world with our wisdom, with our gift, with our this. We become an active member of society in terms of bringing forward. You could say, in a subtle way, you're a change maker. When you start to walk up the tree of life, you become a change maker. Whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, there's a power and it's backed up by this. So yes. Okay. And then finally, this energy moves up towards Ausar, and Ausar is peace. Okay, Ausar is peace. Ausar is integrated power. Ausar rests. Ausar does not wobble. When we reach Ausar, our mind doesn't wobble anymore. We are rested. And it's not even about us anymore. This was about us. This is beyond us. Here we embodying a principle of life itself. We become a vessel for that. That here in this case is this deep peace and surrender. So no matter what happens in life, you're like, ease, chill. Ausar is also, you could call it, sometimes he's called the supreme state of living or being. Who opens up to that? Her love, Auset's devotion and love, longs to be peaceful. She wants to get out of her memories and her cycles to just for a moment, rest in the eternal. He is the eternal and the knowing of oneself as eternal. So you unlock immortality with this chart. And in her devotion, she's just like, just let me sip from that remembrance. Let me just dwell there, rest there. I don't want to remember my whole past. I don't want to spin anymore in emotions. I want to merge. But for those who want to just reach peace by attaining peace, I think in the embodied way, we actually need to resolve some stuff in order to rise. And then finally we have Amun, which is called the shining darkness. Yes. Ausar is still the brilliant, or sometimes also called the brilliant darkness. That's it. It's like we've journeyed to the galactic center, into the black hole and come out. We've dissolved. We are dissolved in dissolution. Ausar starts the dissolution process. So those of you who have done like some deep Buddhist practices or other meditation practices, they'll often talk of the dissolution process.
Yeah, and emptiness.
And emptiness.
It's shiny. It's shiny, but it's empty.
Yes.
It's darkness at the same time.
Yes.
Resonates.
Yes. Ausar is kind of like the dissolution process, and Amun is that. Amun we can have glimpses of, but Amun isn't really a state where you say, I'm embodied Amun, you know? You can embody more and more of Ausar. In the love story with Auset, they need to go together. to just say Ausar, 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 but without Auset. It's a union. And they birth Heru, the child that has the will to rise. So we need also to work with the children. Nefertum also, Sechmet and Patah, the beauty way comes from that merging and union. Yes. So these are, so Auset, Het-Heru, Heru, Herukhuti, Sechmet, they're more embodied, they're more connected to our humanity. We can really live more like an Auset, but Maat is a principle. You can only be governed by her principle, and her devotion is to the law, to your own principle. You can embody more and more of Ma'at, but she doesn't really have a story, you know? She's not emotional, she doesn't have this. So if you're working with Ma'at and Tehuti in an erotic way, it would be very ethereal, lovemaking. It would be like almost out of the body, yeah? Sechmet and Patah, when they make love, it's physical, animal, like lust, but power, pure power. Also gorgeous. Why not? The energy source would come from the root, so it would come from the energy within the root. So it's like you could say it's your base and the kundalini and all the energy then that rises with it. But by saying that you have to do this, so I'm going to start offering 9-month mentorships to work really systematically through the tree to clear each of these. That's one way to work with it. But sometimes your energy might just go here, and then you're working with Tehuti, and then so, you know, like, but if you want to do this systematically to feel this transformation, you cannot neglect the fact that there might be things that have come from your childhood or from your relationships that are continuing to still create something inside that it just like, you know, needs to be like reshifted, rewired to unlock something so that the energy can flow to the next stage and to the next stage. It comes from the root and the base, but it doesn't mean that the energy cannot flow also from up to down. So thank you for a good question. If we want to work with this map on a very embodied level to have embodied change, we work down and up. If we want to also work on it on a very spiritual level, which isn't so much about the embodiment, but more on an ethereal level, we can work from up to down, okay? And we let it like kind of move more in our ethereal body or spiritual body. And then we can move from up to down, yeah.
So, is it possible to work on all of them in parallel?
You can. You see, this is just a map, but how you will decide to work with it will be uniquely for you. Personally, I think it's very powerful to work from the root up and to systematically create a frame of time, whether it's 12 months or 9 months, where you say, I'm going to systematically move through and create a space for that. One way, but you're your own master, yeah? You will find your own way. And you may even create your own map that feels right, and you'll change the names and you'll be like, this is this is that, and that works best for me. Or maybe you have a different geometry, okay? But maps help us to navigate. Maps are there to help us navigate. We're all on a journey in life, on a soul, on a boat, and so we navigate. And then we are navigating. This map helps a lot of people to navigate. That's all it is, yeah? A navigation tool. So, you know, as above, so below, okay? As we work with the roots, we're also systematically working with the branches. If we start working directly with the roots, it's going to affect the way we work with the branches. If we're working with the branches, it's going to affect the way we work with the roots. As above, so below. If you're working above, it's going to affect the way you then move to below and below to above. So it's a law, another law. And even up here, we can still have work to do. We can still learn. And yes, I mean, one way to work with it is you go down here and then you go up here. So this is about bringing it into the body, and this is about bringing it up to the spirit. There's different ways, okay? This is another way. That's a 3-year process to do this one, where you take 3 years like this, okay? So there's different ways to work with it. The reason I like to work from it down up is a lot of the work that really needs to be done now in spiritual communities is to embody things. there's a lot of energy that doesn't have a root. Okay, this is why personally I work with this, because I personally feel embodiment is important. But I absolutely think that if you work up and you've done, say, going from the root up, and you've taken a year for that process, bring it down again, and this time bring it down through the cells to awaken from the other side. So that now you're embodying it again, but from down to up, and from down to up and up to down.
In cycles.
In cycles. There's different ways, okay? I'm offering some of the tools, and not the tools, some of the information, so that you know what to work with, if that helps you. Yeah. This also connects to the anatomy of the body. It connects to the anatomy of the spirit or soul. So there's an anatomy into it, and we will, absolutely. So this is why I'm emphasizing that, there are the as above, so below, and that thank you for that. And yes, as we go up, we also bring it down, if you want to. In your case, maybe your spiritual tendency is to move from up to, and that's all you need to do in one lifetime. You see, what's right for you is right. Mariam will have her own way, you will have your way, you will have your way. So if someone says this is the only way, it doesn't work, okay? You might change one of the spheres and put in it something else, because that's what feels right to you, okay? So again, take this as a map if you want to, all right? I think it makes a lot of sense personally, and it adds a wonderful backbone of stability and anatomy to an inner structure. It's like a skeleton system to a body, a spiritual body of work. What the flesh looks like, or what the color of the skin looks like, or how much hair is there is up to you. But the skeleton is a skeleton. How it looks like on the outside is what is uniquely your constitution, and what is uniquely yours. Yes? So I do think down, up, down is important, but I also don't, for me personally, the traditional Kabbalah way, or some people, they work from up to down only, and they miss the embodiment. This is just the part of me that feels, bring the embodiment into it, that's all. Embody it. Don't just make it an intellectual fun thing, but embody it, that's all. Yes, and sometimes we have dominant spheres and they need balancing. And when we know what they need balancing with, we can do it faster and deeper. If we know that we keep tripping up in this sphere, we know what we need, because the medicine is right there in front of our eyes, right? So it also helps to know and to have an understanding of what's going on and how we can support that. To find in the end, for ancient Egyptians, stability. It was health, life, stability, and joy were just basic principles of life. You need stability. This tree helps stability. Otherwise, we're in our heads all the time and we don't know how to live life. And really, again, I think right now it's a time we're change makers, all of us. It's time we wake up and realize that, and get more work and more inner work. Yes, that's important. And let's rise. Now it's time to rise. Let's rise, and support each other, support ourselves, get what we need, and understand also what we need. Exactly. We could, like we said, we could open this and we could, we can absolutely, thank you. We can bring in the tarot, we can bring in astrology, we can bring in crystals, we can bring in herbs, we can bring in mantras, we can bring in the 9 bodies that fit perfectly into this. So thank you for listening. I hope it was beneficial to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.